Have you ever noticed that some students seem to lose their curiosity as they move through school? They may still complete their work, but they stop asking questions, stop wondering, and simply wait for the teacher to provide the answer. But learning becomes much more powerful when students are curious. Boring lessons give students answers. Engaging lessons make students want to find the answers themselves. This is where inquiry-based learning changes the traditional classroom. In a traditional lesson, the teacher explains, and students are expected to remember. But inquiry takes a different approach. Students begin with questions. They investigate, explore possibilities, and eventually discover understanding. The teacher is still there, but the student becomes an active participant in the learning process. So, what does inquiry-based learning actually look like? It can be as simple as 4 steps. First, students ask. Then they wonder about what they have observed. Next, they explore through investigation, discussion, experimentation, or research. And finally, they discover new understanding. The important part is that students are not simply receiving information. They are actively building it. One of the easiest ways to introduce inquiry is to start with a mystery. Instead of saying, "Today we learn about volcanoes," give students something to think about. For example, ask, "Why do people live near volcanoes?" Now students have a reason to investigate. They may think about fertile soil, natural resources, geography, or the history of communities. The lesson has suddenly become a puzzle they want to solve. And once curiosity is triggered, give students permission to ask questions. Ask them, "What do you notice? What surprises you? What do you wonder?" These questions may seem simple, but they encourage students to observe carefully and think beyond what is immediately visible. And remember, the goal isn't always to get the perfect question. The goal is to get students thinking. But inquiry doesn't mean telling students, "Figure it out yourself," and walking away. Curiosity needs guidance. Teachers can provide clues, useful resources, challenges, examples, and feedback at the right moments. This is scaffolding. You are giving students enough support to move forward without taking away the opportunity to discover. The teacher guides the journey without giving away the destination. Another powerful strategy is to turn facts into problems. Instead of asking students to simply remember information, give them something they need to figure out. Instead of saying, "Remember this," ask, "Can you figure this out?" Now students have a purpose for using the information. They aren't just collecting facts. They're applying them to solve a problem. And that makes learning more active and meaningful. This also changes the role of the teacher. The teacher doesn't need to disappear from the classroom. Instead, the teacher moves from being the person who provides every answer to being the person who asks better questions. Rather than controlling every step of the investigation, the teacher guides the discovery. Sometimes the best teaching moment isn't giving students the answer. It's asking the question that helps them find it. And this becomes even more important in an AI-powered world. AI can give students answers in seconds. But can students decide what questions are worth asking? Can they investigate those answers? Can they challenge information, compare evidence, and make thoughtful decisions? That is why curiosity matters. Curiosity leads to questions. Questions lead to investigation. And investigation develops critical thinking and better decision-making. So, how can we cultivate curiosity in our classrooms? Start with a mystery. Encourage students to ask questions. Give them opportunities to investigate. Provide scaffolding when they need support. And most importantly, celebrate thinking, not just correct answers. When students become curious, they become more willing to explore, question, and learn. Don't just teach answers. Teach students to wonder. Because when students learn to ask better questions, they don't just learn more. They begin to think more deeply. So here's a question for you. What lesson could you turn into a mystery?